Welcome to today's Energy Central Power session entitled De-risking and Accelerating Innovation Inside Regulated Utilities, an Energy Central Power session. And I'm happy to turn the floor over to our moderator for today's event, Kim, founder and CEO of Innovation Force. Thank you for joining the event, Kim. Over to you for the floor.
Thank you so much, PJ, and thanks to everyone, our panel and all the attendees for joining. We have put together a superstar panel today to talk about the topic of de-risking innovation inside of regulated utilities. So first, I'll just start by laying the foundation of what this session was all about. The greatest weapon we possess to combat climate change is innovation, but innovating inside regulated utilities can be challenging. Utilities are highly complex organizations that exist within equally complicated regulated landscapes, with the goal of delivering safe, affordable, and reliable power. So, how can innovation fit in this context? This panel will discuss a series of topics today on this topic, and we're joined also by Dr. Linda Hill, HBS professor and my co-founder at Innovation Force, who is a world-renowned expert in innovation and has written the book Collective Genius. We're excited to have her on the panel as well to weigh in on a variety of these topics, and I hope provide a really great sounding board for everybody today to also get their questions asked and answered by the panel and by Linda. So don't be shy. I will be moderating the chat, and I will be able to pull your questions in as we go. Just for a little bit of the run of show, my topics for today's great panel will include covering everything from how do you include your customers in the innovation conversation? How do you include your regulators, your employees, your operations team? So we'll be talking about the full life cycle. We'll also be talking about digital transformation, culture and capabilities, and how to use data and KPIs as part of measuring your innovation program. And I know everybody's going to want to stick around for the end because Matt Chester's here from Energy Central, and he will be announcing Energy Central's Innovator of the Year Awards at the end of this webcast. So we are quite humbled and honored to be a part of having this be a live announcement this year. So we're going to give it a shot. We're all innovators. We'll give it a try and we'll see what happens. And it should be a fun conversation, and hopefully won't have too many technical issues that'll stand in our way. So to get started, I'd like to turn the floor over to our panelists. I would love our panelists to be able to just do a quick intro on themselves and a little bit more about their role in leading innovation at their respective utilities. And I will ask Morgan to be our first to chime in here.
Great. Hi, I'm Morgan Stacy. I am the Vice President of Account Management for National Grid, which is a regulated utility, and I cover our account management strategy for the state of Massachusetts, and that is inclusive of bringing new customers onto our networks on both the gas, electric, and renewables side of the house, as well as our strategic customer engagement.
Thank you, Morgan. You were a little breaking up there, so we'll keep an eye on that during the webcast.
Okay.
Great. Okay, Allegra.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here today. So I'm Allegra Hodges. I am the head of strategic innovation at Portland General Electric in Portland, Oregon. I actually come to the world of energy via my training in social psychology. So that kind of flavors a lot of the work that I do in accelerating innovation and PGE, embarking on demonstrations to understand the value of new technology as we bring it into the utility. And for the purposes of that, I really ask a question of what is getting in people's way. If we have these really big goals that we have to meet, both in statute around decarbonization, but also just to meet the needs of our customers as we experience incredible growth in terms of data centers and semiconductor manufacturing. If we're going to meet that need that our customers are bringing to us, then we need to bring innovation to be able to do that. We need to have those capabilities met through new technology. And it's not just about saying that we need to do it. I think there's a very clear why, but we need to be able to make sure that the people that we're asking to innovate are capable of doing so and that they feel comfortable doing so, and that we're creating the environment that allows innovation to happen. So that's really the role that I play at PGE, and I'm happy to be here on the panel today. Thanks.
That's great, Allegra. And you're touching on a lot of the great topics we're going to be diving into here. So thank you for that intro. Heather.
Good morning, or I guess afternoon for some of the folks joining. I'm Heather Rock. I'm the Senior Director for Strategy at Pacific Gas and Electric. And listening to Allegra, I think we have to be careful of PG&E versus PG&E. So I oversee our strategy team. So we are looking at how are we going to be preparing PG&E, our customers, the communities we serve in California for the energy transition. So we currently provide energy through both gas and electricity to about 16 million Californians. We have a very ambitious state in terms of climate goals by 2045 and 2040 for PG&E to be a net zero energy system. So we are thinking about what must be true to enable a resilient, affordable transition for all of our customers. And innovation is going to be a key component of this in order to make all the puzzle pieces fit together. A pleasure to be here today.
Thank you so much. And Robin, floor is yours.
Hey, yes, thank you. Thanks again for this opportunity. So I'm Robin Lanier. I'm with Southern Company. Southern Company is made up of 7 regulated electric and gas utilities, predominantly in the southeast of the United States. And then we also have complementary commercial businesses with nationwide capabilities. So I lead our new ventures organization here at Southern Company. We are hyper-focused on identifying and scaling emerging energy solutions. We do that through working across Southern Company to ultimately, our focus is preparing our company, our customers, and our communities for the future of energy. So innovation is the drumbeat that we all march to, and just bringing those opportunities within Southern Company to accelerate that energy future.
Thank you, Robin. And Chris.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Chris Hilborn. I have 25 years of experience in operations and customer experience impacts, a lot of it with innovation, but only 4 of those in the utility industry. So I like to see what happened outside, and it's also great to see what's happening inside. Really quickly, Liberty Utilities is probably the biggest utility you've never heard of. We have 1 million customer connections across electric, gas, water, wastewater, but we're spread out across the country. We go from New Hampshire to California, from Illinois to Texas, and we're generally smaller and more rural utilities. And at Liberty, I was tasked with supporting 4 teams. 3 of them were new, totally new when I joined. Customer experience strategy, grid modernization, and data insights. And we've had some tremendous successes over the past 4 years, from winning a couple IIJA grants to being one of the first in the country to own behind the meter electric vehicle charging. We stood up a 5-year customer experience strategy, which you might not think is breakthrough, but it was certainly breakthrough for Liberty. Right? And we're using data in all sorts of new ways, like improving our collections process. So yeah, I'm excited to share with you some of those innovations as we go along. And hey, just a quick shout out to Energy Central and Kim for putting this together. The one thing we talked about before is some of the diversity on this call. Right? The utility industry is typically full of white males, and it's great to see a diverse panel here talking about innovation. So thanks for that, Kim. Thanks, Energy Central.
We appreciate that. And the diversity of geography here, I think, will be quite fascinating and hopefully a treat for everyone, because when I go out and talk about innovation, it can really change depending on what part of the country you're in. So we have East Coast, we have West Coast, we have Chris up in Canada, Robin down in the Southeast. So feel free to shoot us your questions. I'm sure someone on this panel will be able to answer it. So now, Linda, I'd love to bring you into the conversation. This is usually where we like to give you the floor to really talk about, set the table for us around like what is innovation, some of your research and maybe even surprise us with some of the research you have coming that we haven't seen published yet. So the floor is yours, Linda. Feel free to set the stage.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I want to say I feel like I'm the imposter here because I'm the only one who doesn't have a ton of experience in utilities. I will say I was on the board of Eaton Corporation and Cooper Industries, and utilities were a very important client base for us. So I certainly saw you from that point of view. I also do a fair amount of work in the Gulf states, and I will be going actually on Friday to the UAE. And as you know, there are many efforts there to look at renewable energy. So I work with a lot of different organizations in that part of the world as well. But as you heard, my day job is as a professor at Harvard Business School, and I chair the leadership initiative at the school. And in that role, I think I've been in that role because I'm somewhat more of a generalist than a specialist. And what I've come to understand is our group is supposed to be sort of a combination innovation lab and educational accelerator for Harvard Business School. So I'm kind of in that space as well. But what I wanted to say is that, as was mentioned a number of years ago with my collaborators, we wrote a book on the connection between leadership and innovation. Because as it turns out, there's not very much research on what you need to do as a leader if you want to build an organization that can innovate time and again. That is still true, even though we did that work a little while ago and we've been building on it. But there really isn't much that says, what do you all need to be doing to make sure your organizations can innovate for your customers and be as agile as you need to be in our economy these days. The other piece that I've been looking at lately, a whole lot, and I'm going to just combine these, and this book is about 2 months overdue, but it'll be out soon, is really understanding not only how do you build in your own organization, an organization that can innovate time and again, but also how do you actually play two other roles. So when you're building your organization that can innovate time and again, we say you're playing the role of the architect. You're building the culture and capabilities necessary for people in your organization to innovate. We've come to understand, as we've been doing research on how you transform your organization to be more innovative, we've come to understand that there are two other leadership roles. One is a bridger role. What we're seeing is that many organizations just can't do it alone. They have to have partners, particularly if they want to have access to digital talent and digital tools they need to get done what they want to get done. So the other role we've been looking at is this bridger role. You have to be able to partner with others. And then the third role we've been looking at is what we're calling the catalyst role. It turns out, as you all well know, if you want to build an organization that can innovate on behalf of your customers and do something about climate, you actually have to catalyze a whole ecosystem. You have to be able to work with a number of key stakeholders to get done what you want to get done, from startups to government to other private corporations, etc. So we now talk about the ABCs of great leadership: architecting your organization to be able to innovate, being a bridger to partner and get access to what you need because you don't have it all inside. And finally, how do you catalyze leaders who know how to catalyze an ecosystem to build out all of those relationships they need to make the environment supportive, for instance, of doing something about climate change. So the one thing I want to say real quickly, though, is what we learned, and it surprised me, is that leading innovation is different from leading change. And frankly, you have to do both, all of you, I'm pretty sure. So my mentor, John Cotter, talked to us and taught us about the difference between leadership and management. And he said leadership was about coping with change, and what you needed to be able to do is come up with a vision, communicate that vision, and inspire people to want to fulfill that vision. And that is still true, and that is what leading change is about. Leading innovation is different because in some ways you don't know the answer. It's new. You don't really have a vision. You have a purpose, like you do want to do something about making sure people have access to the kind of power they need, making sure that it's sustainable, whatever it might be, more cost effective. And in that instance, you know what the problem is you're trying to solve. You have some sense of the purpose, but you don't really know the answer yet when you're dealing with innovation, particularly if it's going to be breakthrough innovation. So it turns out that leading innovation is different. If leading change is about having a vision and getting people to follow you to the future, leading innovation is really about creating the environment in which people will be willing and able to co-create that future with you. And co-creation is about collaboration, experimentation, and learning. collaboration, experimentation, and learning. And all of those can be difficult for organizations to do. So unless you can build those muscles, you won't be able to innovate time and again. And what we found about exceptional leaders of innovation is they wanted everyone to understand they had a role to play. They didn't want to have the innovators and the executors. That sort of didn't work. It really created problems. So what they did is they adopted a very simple definition of innovation. Innovation is anything that is new and useful to the organization. New and useful to your organization. Maybe some other organization has it, but we don't, so it's new and useful. It can be a product, a service, a business model, a way of organizing, a way of cutting costs, a way of doing packaging, whatever it might be. It can be incremental and it can be breakthrough. But the whole point is you want everyone to feel they have a role to play. So what these leaders really say is everyone is supposed to be a value creator and a game changer. So a value creator is someone who knows how to identify what we should be doing and make sure you do it. And a game changer is someone who knows how to identify what you could be doing and making sure you deliver on that. So everybody should think about shoulds and coulds. Everyone can be an innovator, and we need to create the culture and capabilities that will allow us to do that. And the digital tools are particularly important in data, it turns out, in our current research. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview of what I've been looking at lately, Kim, like you requested, but obviously we can go in any direction you'd like to.
Yeah, no, this is great, Linda, and thanks for setting that as a foundation for us to build on top of. I'm going to turn it to the panel, and I'm sure that gave the panel a lot to think about as we're going to hit now our round robin table of topics. But first, I want to start with the customer, and this was a topic that maybe didn't get as much play last year, but the customer and being customer-centric in your innovation process is near and dear to Linda's heart. And so many of you on the panel this year are really thinking about how your innovation programs are connecting with your customers, and you guys have some great examples, as Chris started to allude to. So I think, Chris, let's start with you. Could you talk about how you're tying your innovation strategy to positively impact customers? And feel free to share a few real-life examples to give us some inspiration.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So, at Liberty, we have a customer vision, and that vision is to create loyal customers. So, while utilities right now can be viewed as a bit of a monopoly, right? And our customers don't necessarily have choice. I believe they do have choice, and they're going to have more and more choice into the future, right? They can choose their type of fuel that they want to use, whether it's electric or gas. They can choose to generate their own if they wish to, and there's going to be more and more of that. So, we look to create loyal customers, and to do that, we need to innovate for them so they'll stay loyal with us. So, a couple of examples. So, I started back in 2020, as I was saying, it was the middle of COVID. What a time to start. So everything's virtual, everything's there, and it's my first time in the utility world. And as I came into the utility world, I was looking around, and I started to ask some questions. So, what did we have in terms of a vision, a customer vision? What did we have in terms of a 5-year plan? And as part of that 5-year plan, what were we going to do next year? And what were our, typical sort of initiatives and tactics we were going to go about? And what were our targets for the year? And, as I dug around, we had a large digital transformation underway that was taking up a lot of space, but we didn't necessarily have the customer vision or these other pieces that I was talking about. And I was surprised, but not surprised, right? There's been a lot of focus in the company on 5-year financial plans and the asset capital and the building that goes behind that. Because in the utility business, we're all focused on our big projects and our capital, but we needed to come up with a customer strategy and a vision to really align our team members and all be moving in the same direction. So, again, I'll take you through what we did. Again, it's not breakthrough, but in terms of the world, but it certainly was at Liberty. So over the next few months, or the first few months, brought Liberty leaders together. And as I mentioned before, we have a number of utilities. We have 15 utilities across the US. So brought the 15 leaders together, as well as some other functional leaders, and started to talk about, where we wanted to go. My team started to talk about where we wanted to go, and we had to start by sharing the value first of all. It was, it was something new, and so why even partake in this? So we started sharing the value with the leaders, what we thought the value would be coming out of it. We asked them what they thought the value might be coming out of it as well. We then shared some data with them, external data, some of the internal data that we have, and we didn't have a ton of voice of the customer at the time, and I'll talk a bit more about that, but we shared what we had. And with that, we sought ideas and input from these different leaders, different parts of the company, and these utility leaders were the closest to the customer. They were in the areas, in the geographies, talking to customers, their teams were talking to customers. And ultimately what we did is we put a whole bunch of a list of ideas, and we debated them and went back and forth, and we came up with 5 customer imperatives and then 1 or 2 initiatives in each imperative for the next 5 years. That was the output. And again, not breakthrough. I'd done this at other companies before, but it was certainly a first for Liberty. And it ended up being tremendously successful because we could focus our scarce resources, our people, and our dollars over the next couple of years. We could put targets in place in terms of what we wanted our customer experience targets to be. And now, 4 years in, we recreate the 5-year strategy every year by essentially adding a year, taking a look at it, making sure we're still on the right track and adding a year. And that sets us up for our plan the next year. And I'll share with you, Kim, coming out of it, we developed a voice of customer program. So it was one of the first initiatives that we did. And now we're able to collect the voice of our customer through relationship surveys, transactional surveys, customer panels. And this provided a ton of data that we now use every year, right? To take a look at our strategy, say, are we still on the right track? And what are we really going to do for next year? So, what I liked about it was it brought the utilities thinking forward and moved them from sort of asset focused to be more customer focused, and they think now in a new way.
That's a great example, Chris, and I know your story is really resonating with me. I know I can see Morgan. I'm sure it's resonated with Morgan. I think she's going to have she's got some similar observations. But I want to cut to Heather. Heather, what are you guys doing over at PG&E to pull in your customers into your strategy? And do you have any great examples you'd like to share?
Yeah, I was reflecting on some of the comments Linda just made, and they really resonate in terms of what it really takes to lead innovation, and particularly amid so much uncertainty. We recently finished our own 2040 Pathways to Net Zero study. We'll publish it later this summer. But I think the main takeaway is that we're going to need a lot of different technologies in order to get to net zero. We don't really know how much of everything, but sort of everything is on the table right now. And we also recognize that there are going to be changes in the ways that our customers use energy, the types of appliances they use, the types of cars they drive. And instead of taking this top-down look of, okay, well, this is the grid and this is what we need, and then it gets to the customer, we're starting to look at, well, what is the customer energy experience going to be like? How do we think about how is it going to become more affordable? How can it become more efficient? And what is the role that not just PG&E is going to play, but going back to what Linda said about that entire ecosystem? What are the role of the different players in this area? And to give an example, one of the things we're thinking a lot about right now is building decarbonization. We know that, for example, most of our emissions come from our customers burning natural gas. It's about 98% of PG&E's emissions, and it's about 10% of California's greenhouse gas emissions. Well, in order to do building decarbonization, that means all of these customers need to switch from gas appliances, so gas heaters, gas stoves, gas, you name it. And that's a big commitment for a customer, right? And there's not a lot of information out there. And there's the role that we need to play in terms of, making sure the grid is ready for when the customers convert to electric. But who, thinking about that ecosystem, well, who else needs to be sort of arm in arm with us and our customers about making this an affordable and seamless, and I'd even say like joyful transition? Like how can we make using energy become more affordable and aligned with our climate goals? And so we're really thinking about and going to like everyone has a role to play. It's like, who are those other providers we can work with? Who are the innovative startups we can work with? Who's really talking to our customers about that experience? And so that's something we're like actively grappling with right now, of how are we going to sort of supercharge this in order to get us to that path where we need to be by 2040 in terms of a net zero system. So haven't figured it out yet. Looking forward to all the collaboration and thoughts, but it's a really exciting challenge. A lot of uncertainty, but I think if we keep asking what has to be true, I think we can figure out how to get there.
Thank you, Heather. That's great. And so let's move from the West Coast to the East Coast and pull Morgan in from the National Grid perspective. I know that catering to your customers is near and dear to your heart, Morgan. How are you thinking about the similar challenges that PG&E just laid out for your customer base? How are you bringing them into your strategy at National Grid?
I just want to check.
I think your computer's frozen. We can hear you, but your computer's frozen. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, here, I'll turn off the video.
Okay.
So one thing that we are doing that has been hugely beneficial is something I learned in a previous role. I worked at GE for about 15 years, and learning about going to Gemba, which is a Japanese term about going to where the work happens, and talking to those stakeholders that are doing the work every day. So both within the internal team at National Grid, with our customers and our external stakeholders, this ecosystem of energy is really expanding into the policy and regulatory realm, into products that various vendors can provide, and really deeply understanding what the problem is by asking questions and being receptive to feedback. I have also heard in my career, like, feedback is not a time for debate. It is ask for it, take it in, and let it sit. And so I've been at this role for about 6 months, and that's what I've been doing with the people that I've been meeting with, is really deeply understanding what the problem is. I think our biggest challenge with the really aggressive targets we have here in Massachusetts for clean energy is very similar to what PG&E mentioned. Heather's challenges around making the economics work for customers. How are they going to meet the goals that they have that we want to enable? We are also blessed to have very motivating programs like Mass Save, which helps to incentivize investments in energy efficiency and electrification. And so really closing the education gap that exists around what is available to our customers, and that means being more externally facing. And so National Grid has recently made a huge investment in our account management team. And so we will have people solely focused on having these conversations with our customers. Their role will be looking at the whole life cycle of engagement with our customers, and not programmatic, right? We're pretty good at the programmatic delivery of solutions to customers, maybe not the holistic view of moments that matter. Like, are you getting your bill? Are you getting your connection on time? Do you have reliable service with the power quality that you're expecting? And on top of that, are you leveraging the incentives that we have because you're aware of them, right? I think those are conversations that need to be having. And the more externally facing we are and less reactive, I think we're going to improve our ability to innovate and keep it a customer-centric conversation. I think when we innovate and just talk amongst ourselves too much, we'll make assumptions on what the market really needs. And at this time, we're near to 2030, right? That is tomorrow. If customers truly want to decarbonize at the scale that we're asking them to, and net zero 2050 in the city of Boston is something that's being looked at. And we want to be an economic enabler. We want to help that to happen. And we recognize as a utility, we are core to that. And I think the utility brand is changing, and our need to focus on customers more proactively is something that's urgent. And I've been really pleased with EEI and other groups as to how utilities around the country are doing this. I want to make sure that there is not this myth out there that utilities are not customer centric, because what I've observed is they are. And if they're not yet, they're trying. And so I think as collective, as a group, we can all work together to just make sure that there's not the false assumption that there's a blocker between us and our customers, because utility people are good people. You know, they're working at these companies because they want to bring energy and create a safe and reliable network for everybody, right? For residential customers and commercial customers. And it is just not true that we're not looking out externally. And I think the more we have, more creative conversations, the more feedback we take willingly, we're going to start to improve that narrative, and customers really excited to come to us and creative problem solve with the business challenges that they have. And so that's what I'm really hopeful for. Going to Gemba, going out, meeting with people, taking the feedback, and then building processes to work faster and bring different solutions to the table is going to be huge in the next coming years. And like, I've always worked in energy, but I couldn't think of a better time to be in energy. It's amazing the amount of transformation that's happening.
That's great. Thank you, Morgan. And so I want to continue to pull on that thread, but I also want to tee up our panelists to prepare you for the next topic that's coming, which will be around regulators and the tie between customers and regulators and involving them in the innovation process. But before we go there, just wondering, Allegra, Robin, Linda, do any of you want to weigh in on the customer discussion? And I know it looks like Allegra's is ready. Yeah.
I can, yeah, I would love to. And I think maybe I can tie between this and the next topic, because I think a lot of the most powerful examples of innovation that I would point to at PGE have come from the connection between those spaces, between understanding what customers are asking for and understanding what regulators are looking for, and how do you create the fabric that connects those two so that everybody is moving in the right direction, moving in the direction that is expected for decarbonization goals, but also to meet customer needs. And that means going to where the work is happening, going to where customers are saying specifically, here's what I'm looking for. And then us as PGE, we are in that responsible position to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's where innovation has to come in. And especially when we're talking about that time between 2030, which is just tomorrow, as Morgan mentioned, and 2040, when we have committed to getting to zero as far as decarbonization in terms of the energy that we serve customers, there are gaps that we know exist that we will have to fill with technology that doesn't quite exist at a commercial scale today. So we need to be putting everything on the table and understanding what works, what doesn't, and be open to learning very rapidly in order to create the path, that bridge to meet those needs. And as Linda mentioned, I think really key to making that happen is co-creation. So bringing everybody together to get articulated what we're going for, and then doing the experimentation in a rapid way to iterate, but keep ratcheting forward. So never just going back to ground zero, but really understanding what we did in one set of experiments, moving forward to take those learnings into the next. And one place that is really doing that well, and we're trying to build on as a model for the entire organization, is what we call our smart grid test bed. They've been, for a number of years, it's within the regulated space, a place where PGE is putting a lot of technologies on the table to test what works. And we engage customers and regulators directly in regular meetings to understand what opportunities might be out there. And the goal really is to be as saturated as we possibly can within a geographic area, to bring lots of technology to the table to see what level of decarbonization and flexibility goals we can get to by really unleashing the power of new technology. And by doing that in collaboration with customers and really hearing from them directly about how deploying these new technologies in their residences are working for them or not, and then us working with regulators and with our operators to understand from a technical perspective, how are they getting us to those goals, we can do some really impressive rapid learning about what sort of solutions may be deployed at scale to meet the needs that we're talking about, in the 2040 time range. So I really do think it's about bringing everybody to the table and having those conversations, not just one-off and then trying to interpolate between that conversation, what customers might need, but really understanding it all in real time and bringing the learnings back in a regular, on a regular cadence so that everybody's hearing what we've learned and how we can move forward from there to get to the goals that we've set together.
Yeah, Kim, just to add one or two more things onto all of that. So us too, like in terms of engagement with customers, we're right there. Partnerships, we are there too. We recognize our customers more and more expecting increasing levels of personalization, and that's going to vary across customer types, residential, commercial, industrial, and then across individual customers within those customer types as well. And so not to go through all of those things again, but especially on the emerging technology piece, I think sometimes we get in our own way when we see, hear the big theme, right? What is the big theme that we're trying to do? What is the big new emerging technology that we're trying to learn and deploy? And oftentimes where I think key innovation components come in is breaking down those big things and turning them into the things that we can do and learn from today so that we can grow into the thing that we want to do tomorrow. For us, a great example of that is our partnership with Samsung. So we're partnering with big tech to enable more customized, personalized experience to our customers. That's an example of how partnerships and how we're really trying to meet the customer where they are in their own way to have that personalized experience. Also, as Heather and others have mentioned from an industrial side too, we're partnering with our industrial customers on their decarbonization pathways. And I love being able to leverage resources like the National Carbon Capture Center to hopefully deploy the energy that works for our customers and also be able to reach those decarbonization targets. So +1 to everything that has always been said, and then that has already been said, and then also let's break down the big problems into smaller day-to-day achievable problems to solve.
That's awesome.
Kim,
and so we've got.
Kim, I would just like to make
yes,
one
please, Linda.
comment.
I was going to pull you in and say, yeah, please.
Oh no, I just wanted to say in terms of the customer, yes, I think one of the issues sometimes in companies is why are we innovating? Why do we want to do this? And unless you actually have a narrative that is tied to something that people care about, I mean, and that really connects to their values, because you're getting ready to ask them to do a lot of hard work and take on risks. And so I have not seen a successful transformation unless there is a focus on some sense of purpose for your customer. That is really that alignment, and it's also the tiebreaker and helps you prioritize what you're going to work on. So I think that is a place where we all need to start, and we need to have a narrative that helps people understand how they fit into making a difference, a positive difference for the customer, and however you are positioning that. So Chris, I think you're exactly right. And I'm doing a fair amount of work in regulated businesses and in financial services and pharmaceuticals, et cetera. And again, if you're not real clear about that, then many people they don't really understand. Not that they don't understand, they can't buy into why should I do what's going to be emotionally and intellectually difficult work for us to get done that fundamentally we're not necessarily completely designed to do very well. But I may, in fact, we're not necessarily rewarded or have all the metrics in place, but I'm willing to take that risk because I truly do care about the impact we're all going to be able to have collectively as a utility in our communities.
I love that, Linda. And I was going to say, there's 2 questions coming in from the audience right now that I want to frame up because it's right in this theme. So someone from the audience was asking about, there's been recent cutbacks at utilities in the innovation space, and I've been hearing that quite a bit. Every time I go to a conference, I hear about more cutbacks, more colleagues, you know, that are moving on to other areas of the industry. So how do you make innovation relevant, important, and urgent? And Chris, I think you look like you're ready to jump in here, but I just wanted to frame it up from something that was coming in from the audience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start it, and looking forward to hearing some of the other folks' thoughts too. I think it's, you know, innovation happens all the time. It should be happening all the time. It should be a mindset, but it's even more important during, you know, times like this when the cost of capital has increased dramatically, and we're in a very capital-intensive industry, right? It's much more expensive to find money, to finance money, right? And a number of utilities have been through cuts. So, you know, the resources, whether it's people or dollars, are even more scarce, but we still need to serve our customers and create loyal customers, and therefore we need to keep innovating. So in my mind, it's a mindset. It's, you know, I guess a few things that may set up the mindset properly as leaders could be, you know, psychological safety. So in a period such as this, right, where things are changing, right, we want to give some sort of safety and normalcy to our team members. So hopefully the changes, and I think it referenced Excel and Duke, have happened. So those team members can feel safe that they're with the company. How do we set them up for safety now that they can try new things? And should something not work, that's great. We learn from it, right? And in fact, it's not necessarily a step forward or backwards. It's a step forward. Everything we're doing is a step forward, and we're learning, and all with the goal of doing something better for our customers. You know, I can share one really quick example. So we were one of the first in North America to get the EV charging stations behind the meter utility owned. And when I'd first come into the utility business, and I mentioned I wanted this to our teams and to other teams, and they thought I was crazy. They literally thought I was crazy. I thought I was literally laughed out of the room. But it was something that was important to me. It was something that was important for a couple of reasons. One, our customers needed help financially in buying some of these chargers, right? An EV is a large investment, and it's not only the vehicle, it's the make ready in the home, it's the charger. Folks on this call know all about that. And how do we help them with that? And second, I wanted access to the data, as much access to data as possible. And, you know, we went about it in a way that Allegra talked about earlier, is just involving our regulators and involving the office of the customer. In addition to just doing it internally, we involved these external parties as well. And we brought them into the communication early as to what we wanted to do. And then we worked with them on their ideas. And it was iteration after iteration. And we got to a place that was that had strong agreement. And it was because we communicated. And one of those areas was data sharing. And the regulators thought perhaps we'd never want to share our data. And we were very open to it. So, you know, they were open to letting us experiment, right? There's a limited number of customers we can do this with, you know, and we could learn and they could learn as well, because we would be open and regularly in touch with them and share our data. So it's, stuff like this, even in these hard times, we need to keep thinking creatively, provide that safety for our team members to try new things and keep moving forward.
I love it, Chris. And you know, this question from the audience came from, you know, it's hard. It's a hard question. What are you doing, right, in these cost-cutting times? So anyone else want to chime in here? Are there anything you can share back with the audience that may be working for you from these cost-cutting times that you're tying innovation in? Robin,
so Kim, I'll add one. Yeah, I'll add one. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Morgan.
Did I miss someone?
Well, okay. I was just going to add, I think it's really important to set up clear criteria around why you're doing a project early and allow for a swift exit if you don't make it, and then align the criteria that states if this, and this are met, we have approval from the business to scale. And if you can't get that at the outset, like, do not start, because you end up with a lot of these rogue investments, and it's very hard for a utility because you're customer facing, you have reliability and resiliency and all these things. The risk of backing out of projects is very difficult unless all the stakeholders know upfront what the mutual goals are and that you can exit or you can scale. It's also not good if you start a project and it just limps along for 4 years and then nobody knows what to do with it. So spending the time, and Kim, you're very good at that. I know the team at Portland is amazing at this too, but you got to get all the people involved up front and do that hard work early so that you're not limping along a project and then deciding to get people to care about it. Because then you're just, it's not a recipe for success. So I've seen that work at a lot of different utilities, but that upfront work is critical.
Yeah, and it's very hard. That's one of the real challenges, decision making with regard to innovative projects. But one piece that you've just alluded to is this whole idea of when we go to visit companies, they'll say we have a number of projects that should be killed. We all know they should be killed, but no one wants to kill them. And so one of the companies that we were working with, the CEO said, if you kill your own project, I will give you a bonus. So, and he gave a bonus to people who killed projects that, frankly, and part of the reason they weren't being killed, and this goes back to culture, is the capacity of the organization to deal with conflict. And actually, there are different opinions about what should happen with this, to be able to have a constructive conversation about those different opinions across the organization and come to a conclusion, some closure about it, instead of letting them limp along, as this company called them walking zombie projects. So this bonus did get some of those projects closed, and it's not because people weren't well intended. There had been a lot of effort, all the things you said sort of keep people from actually saying, but you got to make sure you actually keep the learning. So one thing that really is important is if you're going to kill something or, make certain decisions, you should make sure that you learn the lessons of whatever that might be so that you don't do that again. But what I see, Morgan, is that the metrics that companies are using to assess innovation actually shift over time as the organization, quote, gets better at it. And so that, but that is one of the things that makes people nervous about going down this path, because they don't agree on what's success. So this goes back to the customer focus. If one of the companies had desirability, before we actually really looked at something, we needed to make sure it was going to address a pain point or a real desire of the customer, and not find out about that later, if you will. And if it didn't, it wasn't, it didn't meet it shouldn't be in the funnel, if you will. So I think being clear about the customer and some of these metrics as best you can be, knowing that they'll evolve over time, is a part of what needs to happen.
I know, Robin, you were chomping at the bit to get in earlier. You want to, and I know Allegra and Heather I want to give everybody a chance here, and let's continue this train of thought.
Yeah, no, I'm actually glad that things played out the way that they did, because I agree with Morgan on positioning for scale. That's critically important. If we have all of these random efforts, right, and we aren't systematically thinking about how will we scale them, we are not setting the stage to be efficient in the future. Also, I think we should not shy away from pushing our businesses to be more efficient. For example, some of the way that we're handling data and just driving efficiencies there, I think is going to be key for driving cost out of our business. And look, customers, not just for utilities, but customers across every industry expect costs to come out of the business as much as possible. So we're not unique in that regard. But I do think trying to find ways that we can use our data more in a better way. And so one example that we're integrating is a company called HData. So they're taking some of our manual processes and transforming those into more automated processes. So that's really enabling our employees to be more efficient in the way that they're handling their time, energy, and resources. And so it helps us for being more efficient just as a business. So I don't think that we should shy away from it. I just think we should be mindful of it. And then that ruthless prioritization for what is most important for our customers and our business has got to be the question that we ask every single day.
Heather,
I would
Allegra?
completely agree with that. That ruthless prioritization is really I think, driven from this more cost-constrained environment that we are operating within, and it's actually been a boon to establishing a more unified innovation mindset and structure across Portland General, I would say, in such that if we have that agreement up front that we can only prioritize, we can only move the demonstrations forward that clearly align to those capabilities that we know we will need, that are the most compelling as far as the value that they could provide to customers, then we're all on the same page from the beginning. And then having that structure to lean on is something that actually helps everybody when it comes to psychological safety, because they don't feel like they're the sole person responsible for making a decision about whether something is worth it or not. They're not the only one making the business case about any given technology. If we can lean on the process and know that there are specific stage gates at which we are all going to collectively look at the value of something and decide whether it's worth moving forward or not, it really helps everybody, and it makes the suite of projects that we are managing a lot more efficient, and we're able to align more clearly to strategic objectives that we have. So in a lot of ways for us, operating to stand up this strategic innovation function in the midst of a cost-constrained environment has been really valuable to make sure that we're doing the work in the most valuable way, and that we don't just have this kind of collection of random demonstrations that we aren't able to tell a really clear story around as far as what value we expect them to provide to customers. Knowing that not all of them are going to work out, not all of them are going to scale, but having that structure means that we have indexed on learning from the things that we have prioritized.
And Heather, I'm going to pull you in, but we're going to bookend this now. So we've talked about customers, we've talked about regulation, we've talked about piloting and everything in between. I want to bookend this by pulling the regulator back in and bring in this audience question around. Today, they find that the extra effort or walk is not happening for new innovation because we're waiting for regulation to shape the discussion before an investment and even a small pilot can be made. So I'm wondering, how are you thinking about, let's complete this whole tie into the regulators, and how are you pulling them in? And I know that you had, I think, a couple of examples of pilot projects that you have been working on, and pulling them in from a regulator or customer perspective, if not tying into the regulator. I don't want to put you on the spot if I'm getting your case studies mixed up in my mind, but I know that you had a really good story here that would help with this audience question.
Yeah, I think if we wait for a regulation to take shape, we're gonna miss out on all the work. It'll just be too late, right? We have to push that culture of just pushing things ahead. But I think what we have to do is ground it in sort of the why. And I think that's what everyone, and sort of echo and plus one what everyone has been saying. What we have been doing is we're being very intentional about that connection between our strategy and the innovation and the R&D we do. And last year, for example, our R&D team took our 10-year True North strategy and looked at all the different business plans that we've created for, the future of our gas system, the future of integrated grid planning, the future of the customer experience, and they created problem statements. I think they created over 80 problem statements, and then published that in innovation and R&D report and said, here are all of PG&E's problem statements. What innovation or ideas do you have that can help us solve these problems? And our R&D team held a whole pitch fest. It was a Shark Tank style pitch fest. I think they got over 600 applications, invited about 60 to come, and now we're working on about a dozen specific projects coming out of that. And I like this example because if someone comes to us and says, well, why are you doing project X there? We can point and say, well, actually, this particular project is aligned with our strategy, which has these KPIs, which has this tie to the energy transition, which has a tie to customer affordability. And so all of that, sort of the why, is embedded into that. I also think that there is almost like a myth that like innovation is, or these R&D projects or pilots are like this extra special thing. It's like an and thing, when really it can be central to our decision making. The example I love so much that we've put into place right in the last year is, for example, we have a new load coming on in different parts of our service area where we hadn't anticipated it. It's just different economic growth. Everyone's talking about data centers, et cetera. And we had a pretty significant capacity constraint on a transmission line in Humboldt County, which is one of the counties in Northern California that we serve. And our engineers and some of our innovation folks are looking at the problem and said, well, if you try to solve this in your conventional ways, you're going to have to reconductor this line. It's a $90 million project. It's going to take you X amount of years. That's not what the community wanted to hear. And when they started breaking down the problem in a different way, they said, well, actually, it's a voltage issue that we're facing. And we have these Tesla megapacks that are sitting in storage. What if we put these megapacks on the line to solve the voltage issue? And all of a sudden, a $90 million problem or project became a $10 million project. And what I love about this is that here's an example of using innovation. We're not waiting for the regulatory process. We can just deploy it today and save $80 million or so, right? And I think it's a really nice example of like innovation on behalf of our customers to serve them when they need in a more affordable way is always going to win. And I think a lot of it is just changing the way that we like tackle problems and think about how to use new technologies without going through, do I need the PUC to approve what I'm doing? No, it's like, no, let's just do it, pilot it. And if it works, let's scale it and do it everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. And so we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to be shifting now to culture. So I want to tee up Linda that we're going to be coming to you to set the stage now for our culture topic. But first, I wanted to give a shameless plug-in for PG&E and thank them and Innovation Force. So PG&E did make their R&D library accessible to the public, to the entire industry. And we were able to take those use cases from the PG&E R&D plan that they shared with the public and turn them into challenge statements in our Innovation Works Hangar, which is free and open to everyone in the industry. I invite you to join at the end of the presentation. I'll have a little QR code, or you could just search on Innovation Force or Works Hangar, come to our website, you can find it. But you will see PG&E's challenge statements that Heather referenced right there, as well as a bunch of other challenges that the industry is looking to solve. Again, free of charge. We're here to spark innovation and creative thoughts and collaboration in ecosystems, which is a great segue into culture. So Linda, would you mind setting the stage again now for the rest of our talk today around culture? Innovation is a human-based team sport, is what I like to say. Sometimes it's a painful team sport. Yeah. How do we build cultures of high-performing teams? And you started to hit on this a little bit earlier, but what role can ecosystems play?
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out where to start on this one, but I would say that what we see, as I said, these leaders who build organizations that can innovate time and again, obviously you have to have your vision right and your strategy right, but they really focus very much on creating the culture and the capabilities necessary for collaboration, experimentation, and learning. And what is the mindset? What are the behaviors we all need to display if in fact we're going to be able to do that? And we all know how hard it is to get collaboration happening across large, complex organizations for any number of reasons, and the whole issue of organizations being siloed. But I'm going to step back and do it this way, Kim, which may be a little different because I've been doing a lot of work on digital transformation.
Yes.
And we've done surveys of about 7,000 executives now all around the world to ask them what kind of culture, what do you need in your organization if you're going to be able to use these digital tools to innovate for your customer. And they ended up telling, I'm just going to take my glasses off to read it, but there were the top, I guess I'm going to say the top 6 that have come out 3 times. We've done the survey 3 times now, 7,000 executives totally. The first one, and this is in terms of a culture that is a data-informed decision-making, customer focus, cross-functional collaboration, continuous learning, comfort with change, and employee empowerment. So we've asked a number of times, and this is what they describe as the characteristics of an effective, an organization that can sustain success these days. And you can see that those are all about, in some ways, collaboration, experimentation, and learning, and that customer focus has got to be central. Now, interestingly enough, so what we see these leaders do is they very much focus on the employee experience and the cultural transformation necessary for all of these new emerging technologies to be used to help us solve our problems. But I think what, as everyone has been saying in the last few moments, innovation is just about problem solving. It's a way to solve problems. And I think sometimes we need to demystify that and just say, how do we solve our problems in the best way possible for our customers and other stakeholders? And so these leaders focus on, in terms of the culture, which makes people sort of willing to innovate. This is where that purpose and that notion of the customer really, really does matter, because that helps us all feel like we're a part of a community that is moving in the same direction. There are a set of values and what we call rules of engagement you actually see in these organizations as well. And I'm just going to pick up on some of the rules of engagement, really the rules of engagement about how we solve problems together. The first rule of engagement is you have to have evidence for your point of view. So any opinion you have, or even if you say, I think we should do X, you have to provide your evidence. Now, your evidence could be your gut. My gut tells me, which is really your experience in some ways and your expertise. That's fine. Now, over time, you hope there are data to inform the gut. But when you say that, the first rule is you've got to say what your evidence is. The second rule is you can question anything and everything. So the second rule is we're allowed to question, and I heard the word question come up multiple times in our discussion, asking the right questions. So someone can say, you know, I think this is the way we should go, and my gut tells me, or my experience tells me this is the way we should go. Then anybody can question you. That is one of the norms. That is one of our rules of engagement. And I can say, well, did your experience may have been relevant with this problem, but how do we know it's relevant with the one we're working on right now? And you can do it in a way, because they've had to say what their evidence is, it's not so personal. Because most people don't really like conflict, and then you rarely get innovation or innovative problem solving without diversity of thought and conflict. And then the last rule of engagement is you're supposed to think holistically. So you may say, okay, that point of view you have makes sense. I can ask some questions about it, but then you know what? Your part of the organization can deliver that, we cannot. Can we spend some time problem solving about how our part of the organization actually can do that, whatever that solution is you're coming up with? So these organizations literally practice these rules of engagement, for instance, about how you solve problems, or any number of other ones I could point out to you. And that process, and they have to practice it, makes them much better at problem solving. And I want to say the first one, data-informed decision-making. What we do see in these organizations is it's not data-driven decision-making. It's actually data informed. And I think that's very important for two reasons. One is when you say data driven, people actually can get resistant needlessly. Resistance. People think, what do you mean? The data knows more than my experience and my expertise? It might, but that no need to get that resistance going. Instead, just say, you know what? We want you to use your judgment, because of course you do, but we want you to put the data and the experience, et cetera. So we see that those leaders who literally worry about the rhetoric and say data informed are making more progress. The second thing we see that relates to that is because we have generative AI and all the AI, everything that's coming out, in fact, you want people to use their judgment. You don't want them to think that some algorithm can tell them the answer. You want them to know that, you know, there's nothing special about data. You do need to ask questions about it, and you need to use your judgment. So one of the things, this is very specific about culture, you do want to have is, yes, people do use data and they use evidence when they present it when they're presenting whatever their argument is, but we also have the rule that you can question anything and everything. And finally, you're supposed to think holistically. So that may work for one piece of the organization, but won't work for another. And until we come up with, and that's one of the things that goes wrong when you're trying to scale, people don't think through how this is going to impact the whole enterprise. So those rules of engagement are an example of what leaders pay attention to when they're thinking about the culture. There's lots of the values, there's a set of values that matter. One is being bold in your ambition. No one wants to work hard on solving a problem that's not really important. The other one is that we actually do value collaboration. That's a hard one to actually put in place in organizations. The third one is actually that we do value learning. But you know what? It turns out that's a really tough value to build an organization because most organizations are so performance driven. And people actually see performance on one end and learning on the other. So unless you actually help people value that and show that you value that, what you do when people make missteps or whatever happens tells them either, yes, we value learning, or we don't, and therefore they're going to be more or less likely to experiment. So there are these sets of values that we see in these organizations, and there are these rules of engagement that are very aligned with being able to collaborate, experiment, and learn. Learning how to experiment in regulated businesses is really hard. Really hard. So putting in place the risk mitigation required for people to spending time actually problem solving with people about how would we mitigate risk before you go down this path is a good way. People have wonderful ideas about how to think about that and deal with it. But coming up with that is also a very, the values around experimentation and iteration, very hard in regulated businesses to get people to for good reason, to understand how to do that properly. So I hope I haven't jumped around too much, but I was trying to pick up on some of the themes that have come up about the problem solving and the experimentation piece of the puzzle. Could say more, but let me be quiet because I'm learning so much.
That's fantastic. And for you to bring in this data early for this audience, really, really appreciate that and sharing that learning. I'll be excited. Is this the digital transformation paper that's about to be published, Linda, or how will you be able to share this?
Hopefully they're all going to be published very soon, but the one about data informed, we have a little bit already out on that.
Okay.
But that part of it keeps coming up. We also are doing roundtables around the world and finding the same issue about how people are supposed to think about data. The other thing that we all know, and this is not to make any of us feel less, not as intelligent as we should be, is that it turns out that a lot of the technical, I don't know, data, technical language, et cetera, is not really accessible to a lot of people. And how do you help people understand what you're talking about without making them feel like they're not so competent? People resist efforts, change efforts that make them feel incompetent if they don't think you're going to help them feel competent. So I will just tell you, I work with high potential populations at Harvard Business School executives, and I've come to appreciate that because they don't all use statistics. I mean, I have a PhD, and probably everyone who's on the panel, we do these statistics and understand all of these pieces of the puzzle to some extent. Many of our colleagues don't. And I think that we actually need to help them get it. And one of the ways that I do see that is making a difference, we're trying to assess why are some organizations getting more adoption, for instance, of data and digital tools. And one is this education process, and helping people. But one of the things that really does help it, which is visualization tools, because those visualization tools, when you can help people see something, complex sort of ideas about how these analytics are working, makes a huge difference in whether or not they're going to use them. So one example is a very simple system, and then let me be quiet after this, is one of our executives to help people understand about complexity in his regulated business. They used what they called about risk, they used what they called as a complexity score. So how complex is a project? And complexity is quite tied to risk in his industry. So no one really wanted to say my project is risky. That just wasn't language coming out of a regular, but they were willing to say my project is complex over time. So since complexity and risk were so highly, so connected, they developed sort of a dashboard of sorts of an assessment of different projects that were in the funnel from red, yellow, green, most complexity to least complexity, and they developed their own case law around what complexity was about. And red meant pay attention, as opposed to, too risky or something. So I think figuring out language that fits a regulated environment and actually is getting at what you need to get at, that is sort of acceptable. Like you cannot say in most regulated businesses, maybe some of you can, fail fast. No, there's no such thing as fail fast. There is learn fast. So that rhetoric and how you actually position what you're talking to people about when you're thinking about using data, trying experiments, etc., is something that we all need. This is where the leadership comes in. But for sure, what we see in these cultures are people do value learning. They do value collaboration. And the learning, by definition, means as you're learning, you're gonna be doing some things that are pretty complex. You're going to take some risk, and there are going to be these missteps. And the question is, can you document and also share that learning so it doesn't get repeated more broadly, around the organization? Those are just a few, I hope, tactics that I've seen leaders in regulated business do as they're trying to build out the culture, a culture that is more supportive of collaboration, experimentation, and learning.
I love it. And Allegra, I'm going to cue you up because I would love to hear you be able to share a little bit of this story that you've put a lot of this work into practice. We wanted to let the panel know we are running close to our time, so this will probably be the last question that each of you will have time to answer. And so be thinking about how you want to tie into this culture discussion, what lessons you think you would like to share around how you're building cultures of learning and innovation inside of your utilities. So Allegra, we'll start with you, and then we'll go round robin.
Yeah, I would. Some of the themes that have just been brought up. Complexity is one that I really keyed into, because I think a lot of what we've tried to do in standing up our strategic innovation function is make it simple. We are tying to this repeatable process of understanding how a potential solution might meet a need. We develop a hypothesis. It's very in line with the scientific method. We don't use that language necessarily, but we go through a very some very set steps that help people ask those questions of what value might be there, test whether that value is there, and then make conclusions about what we learned from it, whether it worked the way we expected or not. And breaking things down into that really simple process, and also reducing the complexity of any one demonstration, has helped free people, I think the people doing the innovation, from getting too spun up around what risks might be out there, to really just focusing on how to solve that problem in the simplest way possible, so we can get as clear of an understanding of what to do next as we can. And it's not just the people doing the innovation, it's not just the one who may be bringing the idea forward, it's the network of collaborators that we need to work really closely within our utility to make any demonstration happen, because you're not going to move anything forward unless you have a clear path for cybersecurity, for supply chain or procurement, making sure we've got all of these people on board, legal, to make sure that we're creating the lowest risk, most sandboxed version of the demonstration we could do to meet the needs of all of those partners, in order to make it simple and low risk, gets us to move faster, learning faster, and doesn't make any one person feel like they're carrying the risk of the entire demonstration. And I think it's been a culture shift, or the beginning of a culture shift. I think we're still very much at the beginning of the road, but it has helped shift the conversation from something where people might feel a fear of innovating or a fear of trying something new because it might not work out the way they expected, to being more willing to experiment in order to understand the value that might be there for customers.
Who would like to chime in next? Chris,
Yeah,
you're leaning in, Chris. It's going to be you.
Yeah, I'll jump in quick. So because we have utilities across 15 different states, they have similar issues, but different sizes of each of the issues. They all have something that they're battling with or trying to solve more than the other. So, I would say at first, one of our missteps as a team was trying to peanut butter spread the same solutions across all the utilities, when, we were really bumping up against some walls because some didn't see the value. So we've sort of changed that to be more of, what does each utility need? How do we go in there and pilot it and learn in there? And then subsequently we can scale it. And, our other utilities are then more interested because it's more of a proven solution, right? And it necessarily wasn't the top of their list, but since we have a proven solution, we can bring it in and help them. So we've really then focused on going after the solutions with the most value or where we're most wanted, piloting, learning, and then taking it across to the other utilities as, having them pull us in, as opposed to us trying to push the door down and get in ourselves. So it's really, I guess it comes down to the leadership wanting us to come in. It's a much easier environment than having to push ourselves in from an innovative perspective.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. And then why don't we wind up with, we'll do Robin, Heather, and then Morgan will.
That sounds great. Yeah, so I love learn fast versus fail fast. I think that's my one of my key takeaways for today. And I truly hope that I'm able to give just a portion of what I've gotten out of this discussion. But as we think about serving our customers, we think about a portfolio approach. We know that there's not one solution to be able to solve all of our customer opportunities. And so I think that same mindset applies to the way that we engage with our employees and our communities to ultimately create those conditions to drive culture. So a couple of things just from our wheelhouse. So we've got platforms for everyday solutions. So employees can go in to a platform and type in or engage with various teams to say, hey, I've got this bright idea on a way to do something better, faster, cheaper. We have working groups, maybe with subject matter experts. We do cross-functional teams, cross-pollinating from different organizations on, again, that purposeful why. We try to bring in new ways of working. So we've got a whole transformation office that's focused in on bringing in a dedicated team and thinking with agile ways of working to separate employees out of their day-to-day to solve a complicated problem, but breaking it down into smaller opportunities. We try to have platforms to share information so that we can disseminate good news and just good information to our employees. And then I think the wraparound piece is being willing to disrupt yourself and bringing in alternative perspectives into those discussions, because we certainly don't want to be an echo chamber. And so that's a component of even what our team in New Ventures is focused on, is trying to bring alternative perspectives of things that's going on in the market. But I think truly all of those platforms, and especially as we think about having that diversity of engagement to create those, to create that culture, is really what helps us drive innovation across Southern Company.
Great, Robin, thank you. Heather?
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know we're running short on time. I'm still just thinking about something Linda just said about the rules of engagement. And, one of the things I know that, I'm grappling with is just the change management. We're talking about working with coworkers who have built energy systems that perform well with today's goals in mind, and we're now talking about completely different goals in a pretty short period of time. And so having that way to engage, to say, okay, your expertise really worked to get us where we are today, but we're now tackling a different problem, and how to bring people along on that is something I know I'm grappling with. I think a lot of us will have to. So just wanted to say that really resonated with me.
Thank you for sharing that. I think everybody in this audience can relate to that specific pain point. And Morgan.
Yeah, I'll share kind of a quick win that we've had. Is I started thinking about how we build more positive reasons to engage with our customers rather than triaging the issue of the day. And so this is just an innovative way to pull in marketing and our new account management team. But we thought about how do we get closer to our customers, and we identified a manufacturing customer that employs hundreds of people, state of Massachusetts, and created a marketing campaign where we actually went on site and educated their employees on our energy efficiency solution offerings, and we in Spanish. And that doesn't feel like a big win from an innovation standpoint, but think about the positive rapport that you build with a large commercial customer, really being customer centric and understanding who your audience is, and bringing them a message in a way that they can understand and absorb it. And that's typically a target market that we have a difficult time getting ahead of. And that's something that exemplifies innovation. It's really understanding the problem, seeing our customers as they truly are, meeting them where they are, going to their site. And I think one of the amazing things that came out of it was they almost see our partnership as a benefit, right? It's a benefit to their employees, even though it's not a healthcare benefit or anything else, but coming in as that truly trusted advisor. And you could see the team light up as they thought about weatherization, changing those, getting free charging for a potential electric vehicle purchase. The way that we can shift the mindset, utility, and how we work with people on a massive scale by repeating that kind of innovation. There's the big ones, like incorporating fuel cells and batteries and, command and control of all DERs. That's tricky stuff. But there's also those things that you can do day to day, and you can pull in a lot of people and make those tangible, make people feel meaning in their jobs. And I think that that's going to create a ripple effect across our company. We saw how it impacted our customers. And then we use data, again, easy data, but how many people are using the QR code? How many people picked up the Spanish collateral that we created just for that event? Really started to see an uptick in some of the things that we've been struggling with as a company. You do it once, now we have a reason to replicate because we have the data behind it. We used our judgment, like you said, Linda, but now we have that evidence that says, yes, this works. Yes, this creates positive engagement. It's easy, not that costly. And think of the people that we're going to be getting our message out to in a new and different way. And you can run the whole spectrum of innovation, but that was one really fun one that we were able to share internally to the company, and really brought a lot of positive morale, and was just a quick win for innovation. So that's a culture we're trying to continue onward. So, but this has been a great panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan, and thanks to the whole panel. So we're going to be bringing in Matt Chester from Energy Central as we do that. I just, PJ, if you wouldn't mind, I was going to roll through just a quick couple of slides. So the slides here that I've put together, please contact me. I would be happy to send them to you. For whatever reason, they're not coming through from a resolution point of view, but I've put together a little bit of an innovation maturity curve that will be part of a 3-part series that I've been writing at Energy Central on innovation. The first is out, and the second's coming out this week, and the third will be a wrap-up of this event, and I'll link to a PDF version if anyone wants to contact me, or a PDF version of these slides. So a way to look at your innovation maturity curve as you start to build these capabilities. PJ, the next slide. In the spirit of visualization, just a quick look at it if Innovation Works. For those of you that are kind of like, what is Innovation Works and Innovation Force all about? We have been trying to display in visual ways, ways that you can look at your innovation program. You can pull in the different workflows and subject matter experts, create ecosystems, but also start to look at those financial benefits and benefits of the learning that you're gathering. Next slide, PJ. I think we'll probably just cut through now just to the very last slide, and I'll offer the QR code for the hangar if this makes it easy for those of you who are interested in jumping into the hangar, seeing PG&E's R&D library and the other 500 challenge statements that we've been capturing across the industry. Please join us. Chris Hilburn and Allegra and PG&E have all won Innovator of the Month awards from us because of their participation in the hangar from a utility perspective. And we also give a award out every month to the solution provider of the month. So the solution providers that are trending in this ecosystem with the most views and likes are receiving awards from us so that we can spread the good work that a lot of them are startups. A lot of these startups are doing. And so Matt, now we're ready. We're all on the edge of our seats.
Great, thank you, Kim, and thank you as well to our panelists who were able to share some firsthand stories about innovation taking place across the utility sector today. Yeah, at Energy Central, we definitely find innovation is one of the more valuable and exciting areas of focus we have, so we always want to help those innovative leaders share their case studies, their lessons learned, anything like that. And as a part of that dedication to utility innovation, our team put out about a month or two ago an annual call for nominations to recognize top leaders in innovation in the power sector. And I have the great privilege to announce to you all publicly for the first time who was selected as our honorable mentions and ultimately as our 2024 Champions of Innovation. We received dozens of qualified nominations from every corner of the sector, different countries across the world, and with a select committee of experts from the Energy Central community, they reviewed all those nominations, scored them, and when we went through it, it was kind of clear who rose to the top. So to start, our recognized honorable mentions were Patrick Carberry of Baltimore Gas and Electric, Carrie Carnes of Arizona Public Service, Jared Harper of Vermont Electric Power Company, and actually one of our panelists today, Allegra Hodges of Portland General Electric. So I want to just take a moment here to congratulate those 4 honorable mentions for all the great work you all are doing, and I invite all the attendees today to keep an eye out for the Energy Central special issue on innovation. It's coming out June 27th, and that'll have some more details about each of those honorable mentions and their key work. So thank you all for your efforts and congratulations. And then next, I want to announce who the 4 selected champions of innovation are, along with, I'll read out a select passage from their nomination forms just to share with you what did impress our judges so much. So first, we recognize Amy Grice of Peninsula Light Company. As noted by her nominator, she has been integrally involved in Penlight's big data, digital twins, and grid automation projects. Her focus on grid modernization, data-driven decisions, and innovation have all been instrumental in guiding Penlight's use of advanced OT and IT systems such as ADMS, GIS, and other innovative analytic tools, all to significantly improve the distribution system's efficiency and outage response. So we want to recognize that her work stands as an opportunity for other power companies to learn from. So congratulations to Amy. She wasn't able to join us today, but her and her entire team. The next champion of innovation is Kim Rush of NW Natural. Kim was nominated for her work in a novel hydrogen production technique utilizing methane pyrolysis. It's a method of producing hydrogen that doesn't produce carbon emissions, thereby helping the utility to reduce their emissions. And it also produces a solid carbon as a byproduct, which can then be used as a valuable material input for things like asphalt for pothole repair or as an agent in other construction materials. And so again, this project looks to be breaking some new ground. So we're excited to see what Kim and her team at NW Natural does in the coming years in this innovative space. So congratulations to Kim Rush as well. Next, we're going to recognize Jeff Cyphers of Sonoma Clean Power as one of our champions of innovation. Jeff serves as Sonoma Clean Power's CEO, and he was nominated for his leadership in the company's work to solve the climate crisis today by serving nearly 500,000 people with clean energy from more renewable energy resources. He's been at the helm of SCP since its inception in 2014 as a community choice program to give customers an option beyond the investor-owned utilities at competitive rates. At the time, SCP was only the 2nd community choice program in California, and today they serve as a model and leader for 25 such programs across the state. They serve more than 14 million customers, contribute more than 14,000 megawatts of new renewable power. And next year, they're celebrating their 10th anniversary, providing clean, affordable, locally sourced energy to its community. So we thank Jeff for his leadership, and we celebrate him as a champion. And actually, Jeff was able to join us today, so I'll take you off mute so you can say a few words, Jeff. I think you might have to unmute yourself as well. You can find that button. There you go.
Thank you, Matt. And Energy Central, I just wanted to add one super quick thread to today's great dialogue. I would say I encourage that with audacious problems like the climate crisis, don't wait until you know a solution. Begin the work right now and let the results determine your next steps. So thank you, and thanks to all the other winners as well. It's great to be part of a team.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And then last but certainly not least, we want to announce Dr. Leonid Lev of Israel Electric Company as our 4th and final champion of innovation. Dr. Lev is the company's CTO of cyber entrepreneur and business development, and he was nominated for his leadership in the field of critical infrastructure, digitalization, and cybersecurity. In this role, he's spearheaded numerous research and development projects that have led to groundbreaking solutions that address the most pressing challenges facing the power industry. Things like the dynamic digital twin, designed to emulate, simulate, and validate updates and operational events for utility companies and critical infrastructures. The proprietary patented technology allows for the testing of endless operational events and cyber scenarios in a near real-time safe environment before deployment. So thank you and congratulations to Dr. Lev, who I believe was also able to join us today. So I'll go ahead, and if you unmute yourself, you can say a few words.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I was pleased to be part of this webinar, very interesting and changeable. And I'm honored and amazing to be selected as an energy central leader, innovation leader for 2024. I'm working in this business about 13 years, and now it is more and more challengeable, and we have a great innovations projects to lead in the most interesting things like DERMS, data propagation, cyber security. So again, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Dr. Lev. And so those are our 4 champions of innovation that we've selected for 2024. And we, of course, thank all of those who submitted nominations, and any nominees that we weren't able to ultimately select, just know it was a really tough decision. We had so many qualified candidates. And for our champions, we will be publishing interviews with each of them that'll dive more deeply into their boundary pushing work. And those interviews will also be featured in next month's special issue on innovation. So keep an eye out for that to learn more from these champions of innovation. Thank you all for the opportunity to turn a well-deserved spotlight on these leaders. And with that, I'll send it back over to PJ to wrap up today's session.
Thank you, Matt and Kim and panelists and all of our innovation leaders and champions. This is fantastic. For our audience, look for an email from us containing the link to the replay, and please take a moment to complete our survey at the end of the session. Your feedback is greatly appreciated, and we will use it for future sessions. From everyone here at Energy Central, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on an upcoming power session. Thank you for attending. This does conclude today's presentation.